Hello and welcome to Take Your Time, a Persona 3 Reload podcast where we play Persona 3 Reload in real time along with the in-game calendar, brought to you by Mitsuru's special little boys who are working very hard to get their treats. My name is Jonathon Dornbush and I am joined by my co-host, Tom Marks. Tom, hello, how you doing?
I know we were looking for, bits.
We got it.
I don't know if we do.
We're settled. It's definitely not a weird phrase for me to say week after week. No, thank you to everyone in the Patreon who joked that that should be what the show is this week. Of course, I could not let Tom go by without mentioning it.
I don't blame you. Hi, I'm happy to be here, as usual, because I didn't say that. I was distracted.
That's fine. I don't even know if I've said my name at this point, and I'm just going to keep going whether or not I did. So that's where my brain is at. Anyway.
New listeners jumping in now, this will not be the most confusing thing.
That is funny. I've listened to a few podcasts I listened to. One of the hosts, I think he's right about this, but he has a philosophy of almost every episode of a podcast is someone's first episode and their last episode. There's for each. And it's really funny to me because I'm like, that can't be true of our episode or our show when it comes to first episodes though, right? At least listening through. Someone might start in episode 10, but are they going to listen to the full thing?
If this is your first episode, please write in.
Please let us know if you are starting here and just listening to the whole thing.
Yeah.
Anyway, thank you all for joining us, whether it is your first time, if it is your last time, or if it's just your usual time with us. We're so happy to have you as we jump in to continue our Persona 3 Reload playthrough. This week, we are, of course, discussing June 9th through the 15th. Largely a week of free time, have some character stuff to go through, have, little bits and pieces of story now that we're past the second full moon sort of phase that we had. Some things we'll find out, to Tom's point in past weeks, whether or not they actually discuss it ever again. We'll find that out this week. But of course, before we get there and jump into this week, as well as a bunch of comments and questions from our good pals over at the Patreon. Speaking of that Patreon, we have to, as always, do our wonderful confidant call out. This is a huge, big shout out and thank you to everyone who is supporting us over at patreon.com/takeyourtime at the Palace Ruler tier. And as of recording, as always, as a testament just in case, thank you so much to everyone out there supporting us here, including Akechi as a Jelly Bean, Astral Clock Tower, Cameron C, Dallas, Damon, Dan F, Danimal Lover 01, Default Titus, Dexter, Goro Akechi, Keegan H, Michael V, Philip S, Programmer Sid, Sam K, Sarah M, Shade, Willy Wang Wang, and Zachary L. I can't help myself for video viewers doing a little bit of a dance as I go back and forth, so I apologize. But anyway, I'm not apologizing for thanking all of you out there for supporting us at that tier. And thank you to everyone who is supporting the Patreon, as we've mentioned in past weeks. If you want to go find out how you can support the show, get episodes early, ad-free, as well as bonus episodes, head on over to patreon.com/takeyourtime. But before we dig into anything further with the week that is, Tom, what is the pop quiz answer? We gotta jump in.
So last week I asked, Suimitsu will text you to hang out, and I asked, what does he welcome you to in one of his texts? And as a bonus points, what is the subject line of that text message? Did we get anybody writing in?
We did. I'll give mine first, and then I will scramble through and grab the people who did. I had written down last week that it was I didn't have the full exact thing, so I wrote down the Gourmands Club or Club of Gourmands. And I'm pretty sure in terms of headline, it really actually didn't click with me until a few hours after the episode. But isn't it just meat in all caps, over and over again?
That is part of it, yes.
Okay. So what is the official answer?
So the actual answer is he texts you and says, well, the subject line is all caps, meat, veggie, meat, which, gotta have variety in there. Can't only be meat. And then the actual text says, welcome to the bottomless pit of hanger pangs. Hanger as in anger, hungry anger, right? Welcome to the bottomless pit of hanger pangs. Up arrow, won't you join me? And I read this and I went, I don't want to join you. No, I do not. Suimitsu.
That's fair. But did you join him? I forget. Did you actually hang out with him at that point, or?
No, not that day. I have not hung out with him since getting him as a confidant, and I'm sure I'm going to at some point, but he seems like he's available almost every day.
Yeah.
So I just haven't been prioritizing him.
That's fair. Me as well. In terms of answers, I do want to give a huge shout out to Moral Quandary. They did get meat, veggie, meat correct. So we congratulations to them. They also got the welcome to the bottomless pit of Hanger Pangs.
Congrats.
Also, totally unrelated, but I do want to just say they also mentioned a fun side note. Funny to hear you both slowly transition from calling the S.E.E.S members by their surnames to their given names. Does this mean you're warming up to them? And I do think it's really funny that it is naturally kind of happening.
I'm having a lot of trouble with it because I'm having trouble. They switch in game a lot, and because, you know, depending on who's speaking to them, it's the formality of the situation changes. And I will admit, just like as a non-Japanese speaker, it is harder for me to remember first and last Japanese names of characters as I'm going. And so basically I'm just using whatever most of the S.E.E.S members most commonly call them is kind of what starts to stick into my brain in that way.
That's fair.
The other thing I've been using is what it says on your inventory screen, like your stats screen.
I think in the very beginning, I was switching back and forth just because I didn't know how you would feel comfortable and how we would just naturally, because I was saying their names in my head all the time as I played my first playthrough, but I didn't have conversations about Yukari or Junpei or things like that. I don't think ever called Junpei Iori. That just never happens. But yeah, it's just kind of funny how we'll naturally get more comfortable with everyone. But yes, congratulations to Moral Quandary. Shade guest, welcome to the Court of Gourmands, which isn't a bad guess. And then the other guess I have here is from YouTube, which was Akai or Akai 89 saying welcoming you to the Gourmet King fan club as well. But they also said the text subject line, which I do think happens at some point, is incoming message from the king in all caps, which I do think pops up as well.
There are some good subject lines. I've been getting deeper into Miyamoto's. We'll talk about this, but I've been getting deeper into Miyamoto's confidant line. And I really enjoy that his text messages, you'll see as you get deeper in, every one of them just adds a re. So like RE colon. So but right now I'm at like re Miyamoto, and it's like Miyamoto is cut off at the end. They have a lot of fun in those little bits of writing and character development there.
It's really good, and I also think honestly works for the era, because that's something I think of these days as a grandparent would do. But probably when email was relatively new, or like texts were new on our phones, you would maybe get I think some platforms auto-generated them, and that might happen as well. So yeah, it totally fits. It's funny, and yeah, I think they do such a good job of giving the character personalities in text form too. Mm-hmm. Which is really difficult, I think, when you have such great VO to go along with it.
And it's why I haven't hung out with Suimitsu, because when somebody shows you who they are, listen.
His time will come, and you'll become a member of the Gourmet Club. But until then, we have plenty of other things to discuss, plenty of hangouts, some story, things along those lines and of that nature. So why don't we jump into the week that was in Persona, which was June 9th through June 15th, if I haven't miscalculated my dates. And if I have...
You have not.
Too bad. Cool. Anyway, let's jump in. June 9th, as you had mentioned, it is one of those things. I do also want to... I realize this may be a thing for a lot of people. And, I want to let you know out there it's okay. I always tend to play maybe a little bit of the first day after the end of the week before, because that's just how it happens.
You gotta get to the save point.
Exactly. So that probably happened a little bit naturally for some people, so forgive me if I'm misremembering any details, but June 9th, the day after our full moon operation, swinging back into action, and we learn that Fuuka and Moriyama are recovering from the giant shadow attack that happened the evening before. Mitsuru says we'll have to invite Fuuka to the dorm, though, at this point, so as she's recovering, we're hoping to bring her into the fold properly after our first outing with her. But then I think it just goes right into free time.
Yes, I believe it does.
I wrote nothing else down, so I'm hopeful my brain from 2 weeks ago did not forget anything major. But Tom, what did you do the afternoon of June 9th?
Yeah, my next note is drank a potion, so I think it is just free time at that point. I spent it with Miyamoto, so this week I think I'll just get this out of the way now. I told you a week or two ago, or maybe both the last 2 weeks, that I was going to be trying to prioritize Kenji and Yuko, and then I immediately screwed up their dialogue choices, and so I couldn't level either of them. So I spent all week hanging out with Miyamoto and Chihiro instead.
Did you just feel bad about it? You were like, I don't want to have to deal with that, so I'll just go.
No, so you can occasionally get those weekend hangouts that help bridge the gap in a way you otherwise wouldn't, and so
That's
that always
fair.
felt efficient to me, and I just was kind of waiting. I think that I'm gonna have to hang out with Yuko without doing that, but I managed to do that with Kenji later this week, and so I told you, I was like, you were like, we'll knock out Kenji in the next week or two, and I'm still like level 4 with him, and I think by the end of the week I'm 7 with Miyamoto, right? So I did some slingshotting this week, but yeah, this one I did hang out with Miyamoto specifically because, not to give anything away in his storyline at this point, but he starts acting funny. He doesn't even text you. You can hang out with him, but he doesn't even text you. So there's a little bit of tension where I was like, oh, I want to see what's going on with him. But I got him up to rank 4 now in this week,
Nice.
or in this day.
For what it's worth, I actually finished Miyamoto's as one of my last in my last run. So if you do finish his thing, I could still, I think, speak to it pretty easily, even if I've not gotten around to him. Because speaking of Kenji, I got Kenji to rank 10, thinking, oh boy, this will help us get there. Yes, I've completed a social link.
Yay! Congrats.
We're
That's the
dating
first
now,
one.
of course.
Yeah.
And you know, after the other relationship, I said, no, I'm the one you love. No, we we got to rank 10. We'll get into what those things mean as both you and I do, and we can dive into that storyline at some point. But I have completed my hangouts with Kenji. And whether or not that's a good or bad thing, I'll say when we finish, both of us finish it, and we can discuss it more in detail.
You know, it's funny. Kenji's storyline just has this, like, ominous feeling to
This
it.
ick, as the kids say.
No, not just ick. It's
Okay.
just, it's like there's you know, when you go outside and you can tell there's a storm coming. You don't see the clouds. It's not windy, but you can just sort of feel the pressure. You're like, something is about to happen out here. It just, that whole storyline has this feeling of like, I want to go back inside. I think we should go back inside.
And I braved the storm.
I'm proud of you.
So we'll see where that goes next. But yeah, that was my afternoon. Following on from there, we had our first free evening for the week. What did you do?
Well, there's a thing here where I have it in my notes. The 2 grown-ups are visiting the girl in the hospital is literally my note, because I was just taking notes and didn't want to write down names.
No,
but yeah,
that's okay.
Akihiko and Kirijo are visiting Fuuka in the hospital today, and I think the next night too. So there's a gap where you can't do any Tartarus for the beginning of this week.
Forgive me, I meant to mention that. What's really funny, and if you want to know where my brain is at right now, that is written on the next line after what I did for the evening, so I wrote it down after, and I just did not read it, so it completely escaped my brain right now. So thank you for reminding me, but yes, that is the case. And again, I like that there's differences to how the Tartarus calendar can go on. You're just affected, and you find out about it. But yeah.
Yeah.
What'd you do?
It's also...
sorry, go ahead.
Well, I was also going to say, I'm glad that it takes a couple days because they're waiting for Fuuka to wake up. But I was so nervous these first 2 days after this full moon that it was going to be exactly like the other full moon, where it's just no one mentions it or ever talks about it again, and we just move on. But that's not the case. It's just there's a gap while you're waiting for her, which I appreciate. I think we probably did the same thing this night. Worked at the cafe because it was paying extra.
It was urgent, and I'm not going to ignore an urgent request this early in the game. 100%. Yep. But no, agreed. And to your point, I think obviously we see more fallout from the full moon later this week, but it is nice just to immediately have that, like, hey, things are a little different right now. There's something going on as a result of that, so take it easy, and we'll discuss more later. But yeah.
Yeah.
Moving on from there to June 10th, We, in the morning, have Yukari pop up. She asks if we think Kirijo saved Fuuka for good or selfish reasons. She seems a little bit unsettled after this full moon, which is a little bit of a pattern you see throughout the week, and this is kind of the first sign that she is like, how do you feel this went?
This bit this whole week, because we can just sort of mention it now, is really interesting to me. Because the whole week, Yukari really hammers home this idea of, I feel like Kirijo is pressuring Fuuka to join us. I feel like she wasn't given a choice. Why are we sure we did the right thing by doing this? Are we sure we didn't, back her into a corner and make her join us? And she keeps going. It's basically all she talks about the whole week, which I thought was a really interesting thing to establish a rift between Yukari and the group, but also continuing to establish that Yukari does not fully trust Kirijo or what she's doing necessarily, or at least not trusting her intentions and her motives.
No, absolutely. To your point, I think it made abundantly clear, and we touched on it a little bit last week with the full moon, where Yukari seems hesitant to be with Kirijo for a little bit.
Yeah.
Mitsuru, what am I doing? She seems a little bit hesitant to just be with her for the evening. And yeah, as you're seeing, there is definitely more to that hesitancy, even if we're not getting a full explanation of it. But she doesn't love the idea of just forcing Fuuka into this situation.
Yeah, it's not even that she doesn't love it. She's really concerned,
True.
Right?
Yeah.
Which to me, as someone who hasn't played the game yet, I'm really interested to see, did she feel forced into this, right? Is that kind of where this is leading? Because we don't know how she joined the group. She just joined the group beforehand. So I'm really, really curious to see where that all leads.
And will we? Well, we'll just have to keep playing to find out. But until then, we do have our free time for the day. So what did you do?
Which day is this? Oh, right.
This is June 10th. We had our class, which I believe you can stay up for.
Super funny. The samurai teacher just fully skipping lessons to just get to the era he wants.
It's great.
I hung out with Bebe this day. This was
Nice.
the rank 4, level up to rank 4 for Bebe. And this gets, again, no spoilers, but man, it gets emotional. This was the first time that I got the emotional music that plays during a free time or a confidant thing. So
I know that well. Cool. I hung out with Odagiri for the day, just because I have an Emperor banked and it's just been easy for me. So got him up to rank 5. And yeah.
Nice.
What about for your evening?
I worked at the cafe again because there kind of just wasn't a lot for me to do. And the cafe is still just a good way to get money and 2 points rather than spending money on something. So I just did that. And it got me to Courage rank 4.
Nice. Congratulations.
Yeah.
I also worked at the cafe again, did not get up to rank 4, but I felt a very similar thing this week, and I understand it's sort of the denouement after the full moon, but it definitely felt like the evenings this week were lacking in too much to do. So, yeah, I totally get where you're coming from. Moving on from there as we get into more of these story-heavy days. We get a message from Sonata in the afternoon, I believe, that Fuuka is being released, and we're all going to go talk to her. We're going to bring her to the dorm and speak with her about things. But before we do, free time. So what'd you do?
Free time. I hung out with Miyamoto this day, so I got him up to 5.
Nice. I hung out with Miyamoto as well, got him up to rank 4. So I'm not too far behind you.
You finished Kenji, and I'm already like, we're at the same point in Miyamoto. It's very funny.
You've diversified. I think I've hung out with Bebe maybe twice, Chihiro like once. You're
I'm a little wider spread.
Yeah, which is good. It's good to, for what it's worth, a few people in the Patreon this week did say, hey, we don't expect Tom to do all of them on his first playthrough. It's okay. So don't feel the pressure out there unless someone wants to say otherwise.
You don't expect it. I do.
Exactly. Yeah, the problem out there
pressure
is
you don't realize,
internal. Yeah. We will do everything in our power to finish these confidants. But no,
I'm trying to remember. I completed all the confidants on my all but my first run of P5. I think I didn't complete 2 or 3 people on P5 my first playthrough. I definitely didn't complete Haru because she shows up so late. So I'm not expecting to ace it this time or anything, but I'd like to, because I want to see as much story as I can, basically.
For sure. As more pop up, I will try to maybe a little bit unnaturally say like, hey, we might want to index into this one because it could be useful to talk about. But I think at the end of the day, if we need to watch a video at the end for some of these, it's not the worst thing. But anyway, moving on from there, we have our afternoon hangouts with Miyamoto, as I'm sure everyone out there did. And then you show up in the control room with Fuuka. So the whole team is gathered. She seems a little nervous about things. This is kind of what you wanted last time, a debrief.
Yeah, it's a debrief. It's honestly, there's not even a ton that's really revealed or discussed that's new here. It's just the team talking about it and going through what happened, which I appreciated.
Exactly. The small bits of information are like, as Akutsuki congratulates us, he lets us know the other girls have recovered. Was similar to how like an old ghost story had happened, so rumors spread that way. And then it's more character focused. Like, to your point, it's more about digging into how they're feeling about this. So Fuuka is like blaming herself for them getting hurt because of her absences, this poor girl. And, we try to assuage her guilt and basically tell her all about Persona and what this whole thing is and ask her to join us. As you mentioned, Yukari wants her to know that like we're not pressuring her. But Fuuka is pretty resolved and instantly accepts. There's not much debate for her.
Yeah, this is part of what strikes me about why Yukari's concern the whole week is really interesting to me, is because this scene makes it pretty clear, at least externally from the outside, that Fuuka wants to do this. She's into the idea. She's motivated to help. Nothing about this scene reads like her being pressured or feeling cornered or like she didn't have a choice. It reads like she wants to be there. So then to have Yukari be so, overly sort of conservative with that is really interesting to me. It says more about her than it does Fuuka.
No, totally. And I think she even reiterates it after Fuuka has accepted. She's still like, it's okay. She's worrying if we're moving too quickly with all of this, but kind of accepts the fate because Fuuka will be moving into the dorm with us. And we do get a little bit more about Fuuka here, where she says she'd rather do that than be living at home anyway. Little morsels of information dropping. And then, we get all that. We then, as you said, kind of summarize what we as players know, but that there are these special shadows that are popping up as we fought the night before, as well as a month earlier. We don't really know where they're coming from, but we know the full moons are when to expect them. So now there's a little limit number that appears at the top right of your screen.
Yeah, we have a deadline.
Yes, yeah. So you get that along with the phases of the moon, and it just tells you how many days are left until the next full moon.
And Akihiko very sort of smartly says, well, now that we know to expect them, we can prepare for them. We're not just going to go in blind again next month. We can fight them on our terms, right?
Yeah, and we'll see a little bit of preparation later this week, but before we get there, again, it's one of those funny things. You have this nice little story beat. It's pretty emotional for some of the characters, clearly. And then you just get let loose to do whatever you want for the evening.
Yeah, I love that they give you so much free time, even with story stuff happening. I think that's really smart.
Me too.
I went to Wakatsu and ate the seafood platter.
We had the same day. It was wonderful. Yes, I ate the seafood platter as well at Wakatsu and got my academics up a little bit, but I don't think I got a level. But I do want to say, this actually reminds me very quickly, if I could just pull in a comment. Guthrie from the Patreon wrote in and said that I mentioned this a few weeks ago, but since Tom was complaining about the arcade, you actually do get more social stat points from the arcade than you would from any of the food places, even when they have their special dishes. The music notes lie to you, and the number doesn't actually demonstrate how many social stat points you get. As a general rule, the more expensive something is, the more points you will get from it. The arcade tends to be the best way to do this, hence how expensive it is. Which blows my mind because my whole life has just been musical notes equal points.
Really?
But like genuinely, just even reading that as a possibility floored me. So
Yeah. Because I spent 10,000 yen on 3 points at the shrine, and it felt like 3 points to me.
well, hey, it might have been more. The only way to find out is to keep going to the arcade.
Yeah.
But anyway, moving on from there, we both ate at Wakatsu and fell asleep to the lovely sounds of, well, the next day as the clock ticked on, because it's June 12th. We, again, as we were talking about, just a little bit of Yukari's worries about Fuuka coming in. We're seeing it manifest in a different way now. She asks us what we think about Fuuka and like how she is. She's worried that she wasn't really given a choice about all these things. Yeah, I don't love that you can kind of be creepy about things like Junpei here, but in some of the dialogue choice. But other than that, yeah, just another check-in. The kids at school, I enjoy this, are talking about Mr. Akoda being in hot water after we know Mitsuru laid down the law with him.
Yeah, and they think it's like sexual harassment or something. Nobody knows why he's in trouble.
Exactly. It's all mysterious to everyone else for now. And then Fuuka shows up. She's called the Ghost Girl when she appears in class. And then Moriyama meets up with her and is like, I do like this. She's nice to her, but also is like, you're always looking glum. It's like, that's not a nice thing to say. But then she's like, you can always talk to her. She's trying to be nicer to her, clearly, after the bullying incident. Character growth. And then free time. What'd you do?
I hung out with Miyamoto again. Got him up to 6.
Me too. Rank 5.
Hey, copycat.
Very nice. We're moving along.
We should keep track of how many, like, what streak of days we have that are identical.
Oh, yeah, that's good. Since we had been talking about it last week, Shade in the Patreon suggested synchronous days, because synchronicity is the term Carl Jung, or is it Jung or Young?
Just Young.
Young. The psychologist who came up with the concept of the persona used to describe simultaneous events that appear related but have no apparent causal link. So we could continue the persona link there with synchronous days.
Love it.
Anyway, we have that afternoon. The evening after, we learn that Fuuka will be moving into the dorm the next day. So they've got to prepare her room. You can, I believe, go up there and see Mitsuru and Yukari talking about how they hope there's like not cobwebs and it's not gross in the room if you go check in with them. But yeah, then you have free time.
Junpei's playing video games.
Oh, yes.
He's playing a little handheld. Yeah. And I tried so hard to see what type of handheld and game he was playing for a potential quiz, but it's just some generic N-Gage looking thing. And the image on the screen looks like some generic fighting game. Usually sometimes those are little references to things. And I gotta know if that was originally a PSP back on and then if they changed it for the remake.
Oh yeah, that would be really fun. And I wonder if, I mean, especially, was Atlas owned by Sega at the time? Or I forget when that merger happened. Because it would be really fun if it was like a Game Gear and he's playing real old. But anyway, what'd you do that evening?
I went to Hagakure because since I had Courage 4, I could go and order the special meal to get extra charm up. And I just wanted to see what that was like. So I did that. And then I got Charm 4.
Look at you. My God.
I know. Courageous and charming.
I'm
finally getting into the adjectives that are actually positive now.
Yeah, they're not just slight disses to you as you go on. They're actually like, hey, you're doing a pretty good job.
The most backhanded compliments ever.
Yeah, you're now mediocre. Great, thank you.
Not a disaster is your charming level.
Calamity, ? I went to Akatsu. I was on let me just get academics up a little bit while I'm thinking about it this week kind of thing, and that's what I did.
Sure. Yeah, that's generally what I've been doing too, is I was going a little bit for charm, but it does seem like if you want to be hitting those midterms, you should just sort of be doing academics when you have nothing else to do.
I definitely try to, but again, it's also one of those things where I know I enjoyed those study sessions. So if that's a similar thing that may happen in the future, it might be nice to do those again and get rewarded.
Sure.
But anyway, and then the dark hour approaches. Ooh, a big new story beat is about to happen. What could be? It's the little kid again.
Hey, how's it going?
It's pretty good. Can I know your name now?
Yeah, actually, he does do that,
Great.
doesn't he?
Yeah, this
is so fascinating
Yeah.
that this kid just suddenly wants to be your friend and has to pick a name, and it's just a right turn I was not expecting.
He's speaking in just, his vagaries of mysticism. He's like, I love that he goes, oh, I recalled something else. The end is unavoidable. It's like, I'm pretty sure that's what it's felt like this whole time, but okay, thank you. And then he's like, it doesn't feel inevitable right now because we're good friends. So yeah, he asks to be our friend, and he goes by the name Pharos. Well, it does establish the Death Arcana, so you got that going for it.
Yeah, I was not expecting this to be a social link.
Yeah. Well, hey, his conversations are pretty easy to get through, so it won't be a hard social link to level up. Spoilers. Anyway, moving on from there, we get to June 13th. In the morning, we have Mitsuru telling us about how Fuuka is joining, and Mitsuru will now be able to fight with us.
Yeah, this is not a thing I was expecting. I don't know why I wasn't expecting it. They kind of tell you a couple times.
Yeah.
But yeah, I just assumed that Fuuka and her would be working kind of side by side with support stuff. I didn't expect her to be an actual fighter. I think that's just me not paying enough attention more than anything else.
No, that's fair. It's like my first playthrough was a pleasant surprise to me because I didn't really put two and two together either. I think on this playthrough, I realized especially the sort of heavy-handedness before the full moon of, hey, this isn't really Mitsuru's specialty for her persona. That's not what she's supposed to be doing. It makes a lot more sense that, oh yeah, now she's fighting. Okay, cool. So
yeah, she's got a rapier, real cool.
Yeah, she also tells us the chairman is coming over again, this time with gifts. So Mitsuru's not the only one who has gifts for us. But before we get there, we have some other things to do. Yeah.
So requests open up.
Yes.
You get a bunch of requests from Elizabeth again.
Yes, you do get a bunch of new requests. We haven't really talked about them. I don't know how many you've done.
I only had like 3 left by the end of the other one.
That's
because I was able to do the date with Elizabeth, the first date, or hangout. I don't know if you're actually dating, but it definitely explicitly is like, do you want to take Elizabeth out? Do you want to go out with her? Which I guess is not an inherently dating term, but is used that way colloquially.
That's fair. You do go out with friends.
Sure.
I do go out on a walk with my dog. I'm not dating my dog.
I mean, you're basically married to your dog, though.
It's true. He is the pride and joy of my life and everything that I care about in this world, except for Persona and my fiance. It not in that order. I feel I should clarify. It's not
just
that order.
Just keep digging this hole. Just keep digging this hole.
It's fine. She doesn't listen to it, so we're good. Anyway, moving on from there, we do get all the new requests.
The highlights of the requests to me this time were that you get these requests that you have to go and talk to your party members to complete, right? So now you get these almost like quiz requests where she says, I want a triangular weapon. Maybe one of your friends would know what that is, and then you got to go talk to Mitsuru, who will then give you a rapier, an epee, and then you bring that to Elizabeth. So that's sort of the only big shakeup within the requests, is that sort of new system of not explicitly telling you what you need to get for all of them, and some of them you need to go figure it out.
Yeah, and they're, as to your point, they're not crazy difficult, but it, again, adds a
they're
nice
marked
little...
on your map, I think, even.
Yeah, there's no mystery of who... It's as you said, it's presented as like a question mark mystery thing, but then you know who to go to immediately. But it's nice for a little bit of character building.
Yeah.
It's fun, and you get some nice rewards out of it. Yeah.
Yeah.
Of course, there's is it the sale today? Is this Saturday? I think it's Saturday.
Yes, it's the I just want to say medicine cabinet. It's the pharmacy sale.
No, yeah, the pharmacy's open. It's if you need more, which actually I forgot to before Tartarus last time, so I did stock up this week. But yeah, we have free time. So what did you do?
Well, so I went to go talk to Yuko to see if she was ready for a level up yet, and she gave me a lead about a monk who goes to a club and parties at night. and how crazy that is. So
Interesting.
Yeah. This is the second time it's done this, right? Because you had to talk to Kenji at some point to get Suemitsu to show up.
Mm-hmm.
That's a really interesting thing to me, that it's not going to tell you when those are available. You have to go and physically talk to that person after a certain point, and then that will trigger the thing to tell you, oh, hey, there's this person you should go look for.
Yeah. No, if you get a confidant to a social link to a certain place, you don't keep up with them, you fall off. You may never see other social links. It's just how it happens. So yeah, I'm glad you found that out.
Mm-hmm.
Did you hang out with Fuuka?
I did not actually hang out with Yuko. I said, Thanks for the tip. I'm going to go hang out with that other lady. And I went and hung out with Chihiro.
I also hung out with Chihiro.
Hey!
This was rank 3 for me.
It was rank 5 for me.
Nice. Okay, cool.
Also, I know I need to talk about this. This confidant interaction had a great example of why I am failing, why I am frustrated that I am failing at these confidant links. Because, like I said, I've started looking up what the answers are, but trying to guess myself for most of them. And this one had the big 3.1, the rank up thing happened, and then Chihiro says, again, I'm going to avoid spoilers, but you get the rank up screen, and then she says, thanks so much for helping me, or something like that. And your two options are, quote, happy to help, or don't worry about it. And I went, oh, this one probably doesn't matter, right? And then checked, and it did. Those are the same thing. They do not matter, but one of those will get you points and one will not, and that drives me insane.
Sometimes the choice feels frustrating. I'm with you there. I
That's not always.
Yes. Yeah.
But man, when those ones happen and you think it's just, there's no possible way that this would affect my relationship with this person, and then it does. And the worst part is I think it was happy to help, and she was like, oh, like that's some emotional answer I had just given her.
Yeah, sometimes when you get a 3-pointer exclamation points for the simplest answer, where you're just like, yeah, you mean it? I'm like, what? Okay, hold on now.
Yeah. Anyway,
yeah,
neither here nor there, but that it felt like a very good example of why I am failing at these sometimes, it feels like.
Fair enough. Well, I'm glad you've taken the cheaters route and are not letting that stop you.
Trying to guess first still makes it fun, right?
Totally.
I'm still enjoying it, and it's fine.
Yeah. No, I think that's totally... I've played exactly that way, so I totally get it.
Yeah.
Moving on from there, we do get more story here. Before we get to our meeting of the gang with the gifts, we do get a little scene between Yukari and Fuuka. In Fuuka's room. I think this is the first time we're seeing someone else's room.
I think so, yeah, and it's adorable. It's full of flowers.
It's really sweet. She's already unpacked. It's full of flowers. It's really nice. It's really well put together. Yukari is asking Fuuka for help with computers. Fuuka is studying all of us to help in battle, which is very, very cute.
She's enthusiastic, right? She really does want to help.
Yeah, she wants to really help. She's really being really sweet about it, and Yukari is feeling really down about herself. Yukari is like, everyone's got their own powers except for Junpei. But who am I? I don't do anything. I'm half the person everyone else is, she says. And Fuuka's telling her she's not true. She's kind in a way no one else is. Perhaps leading to something else. And Yukari's like, I don't think so. I just help with the healing. Well, we'll find out if that's true later this evening, because we get to the meeting and Akutsuki has clothes.
Finally! I'm so excited we're not just... I mean, I know you can change your outfit to cosmetic, whatever, but I'm so excited that we have uniforms that are cool and unique.
Yeah, we get our outfits, and we'll get to those in a little bit, but we get those as well as cartridges that enable us to use theurgy,
right?
Which is always fun to pronounce. And so, we're in a place of having a new lineup, new weapons. It's feeling like the team is really coming together. He's saying we're on the verge of a breakthrough when it comes to those large shadows, and then leaves.
Yeah, this whole interaction was really interesting to me, or raised a lot of questions to me, because it becomes clearer that Ikutsuki is working with somebody else, other people to some degree, because he says we've been testing these and they're ready to be field tested, and it's like a bunch of, they've been developing this stuff. Who is we? Who is they? Right? Is a question that is not answered to me yet. Also, theurgy is a new to reload mechanic, I believe.
Oh, okay.
Which is cool that it feels very seamless here in how they introduce it with these new armbands and the outfits and that sort of thing.
It does. It really does feel like it falls neatly into place here. But no, to your point, I had a very similar reaction in the early game where I am like, he keeps saying we and us, and it's like, where do you go when you're not here? What is that? So I totally get what you mean. And then he leaves. Mm-hmm. We all kind of comment on that he's kind of being like this quiet dude. But yeah, we decide to go to Tartarus.
Yep.
And we
try it all out, battle test it.
We get our cool, like strutting the runway cutscene where everyone's in their new looks. It's great.
Yeah, it's such a good anime cutscene. It's so needed at this moment to just really emphasize how great this is.
Yeah, it's very fun to see everyone kind of like confidently and a little bit cocky like, but walking through, and everyone's really proud of how they look. To your point, everyone now has a little bit more of an outfit. It's obviously not the extent of, for those of us who know P5, like the Phantom Thieves having just full-on costumes that are very full-on like theatrical costumes. These are a little bit more of a piece. They work together to feel more like a team-like thing. But
they're a special task force or whatever Junpei says.
Exactly. But they each have different flair to them, different styles, and I appreciate how uniquely they all feel while still feeling very cohesive as a group.
Yeah, it's great. And you get new weapons too, which are so good. You can then go to the weapons store and just not upgrade anything because they're all better than anything you could buy.
It's great. Yeah, it immediately gives you this lift. I do think what's interesting here, to your point of like, who are they? You do get this thing where Akihiko is like, yeah, they tested the prototype out on me for the outfits and the evoker. Yeah, the outfits, I think. Which is like, where did you go to get tested?
Yeah.
The armband has a bunch of features in it. It can read your vitals and tell you when your theurgy is ready to use. So we load those cartridges into the evoker, because we need to figure out how to use these things. Junpei is going to stay behind, and no one is surprised that they have to warn Fuuka that you can slap him if he tries anything. So he is just an out-and-out weirdo to the whole group.
Yep.
Good to know. And Fuuka has no qualms about having to do that if necessary, which is good on her. Anyway, she mentions that things seem a little bit distorted, but will find us a good floor to go to. So we venture into Tartarus. She leads us to find a shadow, but I think at this point we've been separated, right? It happens pretty immediately.
I think you are together for the first phase,
yes,
and then you go to a second floor and you all get separated.
Thank you.
And you get an opportunity to see Kirijo in action with the whole group. She's got ice attacks, right, and this rapier, and and then you go to the next floor and immediately get separated and you have this scene with Yukari and the theurgy stuff.
Yeah, so you have this distortion happening. Things are feeling a little bit weird. As you mentioned, everyone gets separated after that. Quick introduction, but did you have any immediate reactions to Mitsuru as a party member, or too quick to really?
It's a little quick. She seems neat. I'm glad we have more than 4 people, so you can start customizing. I'm glad that I'm not the main character's not the only one who can use ice now, right? Little things like that, but this really is just sort of, here she is.
We did it. So yeah, that happens. You, after being separated, you find Yukari, and you get into sort of a staged fight, where she's
against a really cool enemy.
Yes.
Who is a giant iceberg castle with guns on the outside of him.
I really dig this enemy design. It's one of my favorites in the game so far.
Yeah.
She auto fights it, essentially knocking it down and then healing us. And it's at this point we realize it's time to use this theurgy. And you see the first theurgy attack, which she does this cool sweeping she shoots a bunch of arrows and then does like a beautiful kind of flip into the air and launches one final massive arrow at the enemy, and just demolishes it.
Yeah, it's a really cool animation. I'm really interested to see more about how these activate and when, because this one said it specifically activated because her personality is that she gets emotional after she heals somebody specifically, and she had this flashback to the first time you get hurt because of her and not wanting that to happen again. So I like that they tie it into that. They tie it into the personality so directly in the story, and it's not just, I mean, it's probably mechanically just charge a bar and use the ability, but there's a lot of flavor to it that I think is really nicely integrated.
Yes, and you do get the little bit of text later on at the end of this that like everyone's emotions might affect it differently, so that's kind of on you to figure out in the future. Yeah, to your point, what feels like a standard mechanic sort of idea is nicely integrated to how the characters operate here. And I'm excited to talk about them more as we go through. But yeah, to your point, again, I just think especially with this being such a combat heavy persona where it really is like, it's less about the magnificence of Tartarus and more about going through this endurance test of battles, to have such a cool animation be thrown into the mix now is really fun. It's beautiful. Yukari looks so badass during it. It's great.
Yeah.
So you have that happen. She saves us. We regroup with everyone. We head back to the start. Fuuka's feeling bad about everything because it was her first time, but you're kind of like, hey, you did great. You're figuring it all out. Don't worry about it.
She's very eager.
Yeah. She just wants to do right by the group, which is very sweet.
Yeah.
But yeah, we get everyone gathered together. We realize Thurgy is this new tool in our arsenal. We all look much cooler. Junpei jokes about being MVP yet again, despite having done nothing. And the night's kind of over.
It's a fun... I'm glad they did this, basically. I'm glad that I know it's tutorializing, but I'm glad that they gave us a little bit of an opportunity to get a new sense of the unit and the outfits and everything like that, and that now that's happened and the characters can acknowledge it in future conversations without you being like, well, have they gone to Tartarus yet? Like, it would have just been annoying otherwise.
No, totally. I think it's a very nice way of, one, as you said, tutorializing something that's pretty important for us going forward, but two, it is directly influenced by the big event that just happened, and so it's been nice to have, I think, these check-ins all throughout the week that feel like that event mattered in a way that it hasn't previously.
Yeah.
Anyway, moving on from there, June 14th, we wake up. Elizabeth lets us know that Tartarus has opened a new path. Of course, you have amazing commodities open. For me, my plants were available for harvesting today.
Oh, right, because you put yours in a couple days, or you did tomatoes again.
I did tomatoes again, so that was available for me. But then, yeah, you have free time. What did you do?
Yeah. Well, I bought the amazing commodities thing. This definitely feels like today is the day where, okay, now you're past that event and into the next, chapter of the game, the next phase as you head towards the next full moon. We've moved past, as you called it, the denouement, and now are into the rise of the action for the next thing. Yes. I hung out with Tomochika again through another one of those calls, right? Tomochika and I can't remember who the other person was that texted me. It might have been Miyamoto to hang out. And I hung out with Tomochika so that I could get him to the next phase of that. And boy, he just continues to be a dummy. But I also appreciate that these conversations, these hangouts on the weekend, which I expected to be a little bit more generic, do directly reference sort of where they are in your social link rank. It referenced a thing where I was like, oh, this conversation could not have happened before probably the last one or two social links happened, and probably wouldn't have happened in the next two or three, right? So that makes them feel very real in a way I was very glad to see.
No, absolutely. I had a few points like that on my first playthrough where I was like, this feels too bespoke for this moment in the storyline that I'm impressed to see it here, because it could have very easily been a haha, you're such a good friend, move on from there kind of scene, but it feels directly related in a way that I appreciate and think is very nuanced here.
Indeed.
I did a bunch of the requests that have piled up from the new Elizabeth requests, including taking her out. I do think in the interest of time, we might want to hold it for next week. This is more my fault than anything. I'm on a bit of a time crunch. But I did hang out with Elizabeth as well and went around the mall with her, which is the first hangout. And then I hung out with Maya to get her to rank 7.
Okay.
So
You're
moving that
blazing
along.
through that one.
Whenever you're done with it, we'll discuss it. But yeah.
Yeah. I think she's still 3 for me.
You're leaving your friend, your good, close, personal friend.
I would argue I'm hanging out with my physical school friends instead of this person I don't know catfishing me.
Look, I played a lot of online games. I'm sure everyone I spoke to on Neopets was very nice, sincere, and a real good human being.
Yeah, I don't have any reason to doubt that.
Me neither. Anyway, moving on from there. We do, as the evening starts... Oh, I did want to just mention, I don't know if the dialogue changes from day to evening, but there is a fun thing here with, because you have free time during the day, you can explore the dorm during the day. So you can go talk to people in the daytime as well. Again, I don't remember if dialogue changes day to night, but...
I don't think I did that, but that's a nice note.
Yeah, you can do it, and it's just like a nice thing to check in on in case you don't want to miss anything. But anyway, moving on from there, Fuuka in the evening does let us know that if we want to go to Tartarus, we gotta let her know. We gotta check in with her now.
Right.
Change it along to being our navigator.
Yeah, and she said that we can go into Tartarus. It's as long as Akihiko and Mitsuru are not both unavailable.
Yeah. If the parents of the dorm... Yeah.
Yeah, as long as the parents, at least one parent is there, we're fine.
Yeah, we need a chaperone to go into Tartarus, and then it's okay.
Yeah.
I mean, look what happened when we went to that alleyway on our own.
We got the information we needed, and everything went fine.
With the help of an impromptu chaperone. All I'm saying. So anyway, that happens. I do want to mention, again, I don't know if it's respective to this day. When I went and talked with everyone, Junpei talks about how he almost got in trouble with the cops.
Yeah.
Okay, you got that too. And I'm like, dude.
He just mentions, yeah, man, I almost got arrested. No chance for follow-up. Move on. Go talk to someone else.
I was like, oh my God. All right. Anyway, we have our free time. I, just to very quickly mention it, did the big burger challenge. I had that available to me because I realized it was locked to the Elizabeth request to open it. As you had pointed out, it is a series of like actual questions to answer. It's not just a skill check. I had forgotten some of the answers and was sitting with my fiance who got them right the first time. She just instantly blazed through all of them again. Just knew them all one by one. We got through it, no problem. So I conquered that challenge. What about you?
Nice. I had enough courage to go become a waiter, take drink orders, and then give booze to an elderly monk in a bar.
Congratulations.
So I don't think he even told me his name, but I now have the tower arcana, and I won't go into the details of all of that and what it means, but I have a nighttime confidant finally, which I'm very happy about.
I'm happy for you as well. Yeah, we can talk about that one. I have finished that one also, so we can always talk about that one whenever you get to it. But yeah,
cool.
It's good to have a confidant in the evening, someone to talk to.
I will say, super weird one, but super funny and fun, and I'm into wherever it goes so far.
Yeah, that's definitely how my initial... I was like, all right, I guess this is my friend now. Cool.
Yeah. I'm so curious what this dude's deal is. I'm very excited to learn more.
We'll see where it goes. But before we do, we get to the next day, June 15th. We, again, get a little bit of Yukari asking us what we think of Kirijo and doesn't love how pushy she was about Fuuka and all this.
Still going on this.
Yeah. Even though we've seen things go well afterward, we've seen Fuuka adamantly be okay with it. We're getting but is it? So, yeah, it's clearly sticking with her.
It's fascinating to me. Yeah.
We got a question in class on the keen eye.
Yes.
And then we get free time. So what'd you do?
Mm-hmm. I hung out with Miyamoto again. I got him up to 7.
I got him up to rank 6.
Hey.
Look at us. Who would have thought?
Who would have thought?
And then you get a free evening as well. I don't believe there's any like little story bits.
No,
here.
it's just this is just sort of blazing along right now.
Yeah.
I just ate at Wakatsu again.
I did the same.
Cheers.
Synchronous day yet again. And I got to rank 4 academics.
Hey, congrats.
I'm a little smarty pants.
Well, that explains it partially too. Is I have charm and courage, and you have academics, which takes more, I assume. So probably it's just we've been splitting points differently.
Exactly, it'll even out. But yeah, that's the wrap up of that week. It's as we said, I think it is just nice to get some resolution to things from the week before.
Yeah, it was a really good sort of wind down and setup, right? Both.
Yeah, it's we're as you said, we're into this new phase. I think we're fully entrenched in we're moving into the next full moon cycle, whatever it may be. We've got new teammates. We'll have Tartarus to talk about in the coming weeks, Theurgy to talk about, things of that nature. But yeah, it's a little bit more free time and things to explore. So that was that week. As I mentioned, running a little bit short on time, so I do want to mention just a couple comments and things from the Patreon over at patreon.com/takeyourtime. Dexter wrote in with the question of, how do you guys think time is judged during the dark hour, given it just lets you run around indefinitely? It feels like there should be a countdown of some kind to give emphasis with the title. I know it would probably be done for gameplay design reasons, this way, to avoid limiting people. But it feels weird that you can run around forever.
Yeah, this is something I've thought about too, actually, is I think having it be an hour time limit would be annoying, and I don't think it would be fun overall for the game, but I do think it would be thematically interesting. I think it would be very, very interesting if you couldn't just rush through an entire section of Tartarus in a day, and you did have to plan multiple evenings around that. I think I might almost even find that more interesting than I would be annoyed by it, but I'm sure if there was a time limit and I didn't know there was a universe where there wasn't one, I would be saying there shouldn't be a time limit. So I'm not going to plant a flag on that hill necessarily.
No, I'm very much with you. I think thematically it would make sense for there to be some type of limit, but man, if you were limited here, it would feel awful. So I think canonically it is an hour, I guess, in the world, but it's an hour that doesn't really pass because everyone doesn't experience it. So it lets them get a little bit funny with how much time it takes. But yeah,
and they have established that time sort of works differently in Tartarus, right? We don't know the specifics of that, but they did say that with the whole Fuuka thing.
Yes, yeah, she did not experience 8 full days going by or whatever it was.
So maybe there was something with something, I don't know, don't think about it.
It works well enough that I totally get where you're coming from, Dexter, but I do think it's one of those things where, yeah, if it was limited, we would all hate it. I do think, I forget who pointed it out a few weeks ago, but the interesting nature of there used to be that kind of the frustration mechanic of your teammates would get tired after a while if you push them too far. I think that was their attempt to kind of set some limits, but that's obviously a frustrating thing to have to deal with.
Yep.
So I can see why they adjusted that.
The grass is always greener.
We did get a good question that I think will be useful for Tartarus in the weeks to come. Sarah, this is a little bit off topic, but just to mention since it's a little timely, Sarah asked, do either of us plan on playing Shin Megami Tensei 5 Vengeance, which is the sort of royal version of SMT5. I love the first one, so I am very excited for it. From my view, I have not played an SMT game, actually. I've only ever played Persona. I know I should probably play Nocturne, I believe is a really beloved one. It is on my list to get to, but I am in the middle of 3 other games, so it's maybe a little bit later in the year type of thing for me.
Yeah, I'm not, I don't know. I'm not, I know that they're not the same sort of thing. You can't directly, they're very different series, but the idea of the pitch of Shin Megami Tensei being brutally hard, right? I think in the review I just edited of Vengeance, our reviewer Michael calls it getting SMT'd is, just your entire party dying in a single turn and there was basically nothing you could do about it. It just doesn't, appeal to me fundamentally. I respect anyone who does like that sort of thing, right? But yeah, I don't think it's going to be, like Jonathon said, with so much coming out, I don't think it's going to be a thing I end up going back for or going to.
It's really interesting. We're in a very, I would say, spoiled time for RPGs at the moment.
Yeah.
Especially this year with
true.
3 Reload, Like a Dragon, Rebirth,
yeah,
Paper Mario.
I've dropped Like a Dragon like a third of the way into it, and I think if I was going to pick up another RPG right now, I'm going to be going back to that one, probably.
Yeah, and I'm in the midst of Thousand Year Door right now and dropped off Rebirth, which I want to get back to. So it's one of those, like, I do want to play it. I'm interested to see that flavor of this universe, but it's just not at this moment. But I hope if you're enjoying it, Sarah, you jump in and have a great time with it. It seems to be well received from my understanding.
Yeah.
Anyway, moving on from there, just the last question to wrap up. An easy one on my end. Jenna asked, kind of a random question, but who mixed, created the groovy music intro and outro for the podcast? It's a song called Getting Higher by the artist Mourn, Moarn. My fiance found it, as they are better at music matching than I am. And yeah, it sounds real Persona 3-like. So glad you enjoy it and glad it helps fit the vibe. Thank you to everyone else who wrote in, left some questions. I think we have a lot. We may even be able to do as a bonus a Q&A, I think, pretty soon as an easy one. So we'll keep all of those in the bank for now. But thank you to everyone who wrote in over at patreon.com/takeyourtime. And Tom, before we close things out, what is your pop quiz question for this week?
I decided to go with an easier one this time. I feel like I've been going for really obscure things, really hard things, so I wanted to do a little bit of a simpler one. Not easy necessarily. You got to still be doing a couple things specifically, and you could probably figure this out next week if you go to Tartarus. But with all that out of the way, my question for this week is very simply, we got a new fighter on our team, and the game sort of gives you an opportunity to do an all-out attack with her. And I love the all-out attack screens that show up when somebody does that for the first time. Or not for the first time, every time that character does it, seeing it for the first time rules. So, when Mitsuru does an all-out attack, what's the little unique phrase that pops up for her? And, as a bonus point, what is the phrase in the background of everyone's all-out attacks that all of them have, I believe? All of them have the same one in the background. So, those are the questions.
They're fun. I do love, we haven't talked about those animations, but I do love when they come together.
I've done and dusted has started working its way into my vocabulary.
Oh yeah. I think that phrase a lot too whenever I finish something. It's great.
Yeah.
Well, you can leave your answers to that either at patreon.com/takeyourtime or on the video version of this episode over at youtube.com/Dornology. You can also write in to dornology@gmail.com, or you can find us on socials and just yell the answer there to us. I'm at JM Dornbush, where it matters, and Tom is at Tom R. Marks, where you can find him. And of course, if you want to support the show, don't forget to smash those buttons and the likes and the bells and all that stuff. But really, thank you to everyone out there for following. If you're enjoying the show, please consider leaving reviews and ratings for it wherever you do enjoy it. It does help the show out a lot. And, of course, if you'd like to find out how you can support the show further, as well as get bonus episodes, episodes a day early, and ad-free versions of the show, head on over to patreon.com/takeyourtime. For next week, we are playing the dates of June 16th through the 22nd. That is correct. I did the math in person live. Those are indeed the dates for next week. So we will be playing through those. Probably some more confidants to talk about, some more Tartarus maybe. Who knows? More questions. Whatever may come, we'll find out on next week's episode. But until then, Tom, thank you as always so much for joining me.
My pleasure.
And thank you to everyone out there for listening and watching. We'll see you next week for we'll see how many synchronous days we get. I wonder if we can go the full week. Tune in next time to find out.